and corruption.
All right, you want to go?
It's Alex Jones, coming to you live from the front lines of the info war.
You got it.
Welcome, my friends. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. It's a big day for the world, not just America. The Hogwallops are playing the Keebler Elves in the greatest game on earth, what they call acorn skipping right now, and the entire planet's future basically depends on this football game. Of course, I'm being sarcastic. I don't write this stuff. It just comes up off the top of my head. It is Super Bowl Sunday, the big game, endless hype. Children are taught this is Americana. This is what you value. Not your health, not your family, not your culture, because you don't have a culture. It's a plastic, global corporate culture that's force-fed to you that promotes torture, secret war, record cancer rates, families broken up, giant prisons, biggest in the world, and a government that's publicly shipping the narcotics into the nation. All of it wrapped in an American flag. But I'm going to have to do a special newscast on this in the future, a little review. Every action-adventure movie I watched that's supposedly set in our contemporary world has pro-checkpoint, police state, New World Order images throughout it. And you see the shows like Breaking Bad on TV where Ron Paul, you know, the meth head is a fan of Ron Paul. All of that is propaganda. But the fact that it's so complete and so across the board is really just more evidence of just how criminal this system is. I watched Law Abiding Citizen earlier in the week, reviewed it, while on the treadmill. And the whole thing is get rid of the Bill of Rights, Constitution, have checkpoints, torture people. It's what the good guys do. And the prosecutor at the end agrees it's good to torture and have no liberties or freedom. This movie, Source Code, the guy that's going to detonate a homemade atomic bomb in Chicago, which I've said to me the next globalist target, it's one of the big ones, because I've seen their preconditioning propaganda for it. The bad guy builds the bomb with an American flag on it. So, see, it's the image of people that are into the American flag separately from when it's government approved, you're terrorist. And he's a right-wing scum anti-government, and he wants to nuke everything. But don't worry, the helicopter pilot, who's really dead in a vegetative state, but they've revived his brain to send him into the hyperdimensional vortex to go back and save everyone. And, oh, it's just so magical. Oh, it's so wonderful. So they just make fake military heroes. You know, they've learned not to use a Pat Tillman because he could get out of hand, or a Private Lynch, and then they have to kill people. No, they just always have the hero, the torturer who's military, the good guy that knows the Bill of Rights is bad, and the cops all agree and learn that. And of course, this guy, he stops the ever-present bombers. You know, we've gone over the statistics, but I thought I'd go back into some of those later in the transmission. You got a better chance of dying in the water, drowned. You've got a better chance dying from honeybee stings, or a deer jumping out in front of your car, or from champagne corks, and I have the CDC's own numbers here, than you do of dying from terrorists. But every TV show, movie, everything is about terrorists or under every table. And you're just supposed to shake in fear and trust no one but the government. And that brings me to the big top story that ended up being all over national news that Paul Watson put out Friday. TSA trains Super Bowl hot dog sellers to spot terrorists. Fox News picked it up. TSA deploys wiener watchers at the Super Bowl. We're going to break it all down straight ahead. And Iran. We'll be back. It is Super Bowl Sunday. Oh, let's get ready to rumble. All of America is watching, feeling manly. They don't have a Bill of Rights or Constitution. The First Amendment is openly being shredded in front of everyone's eyes. The federal government has announced it will secretly kill U.S. citizens or arrest you and have you disappear into a black hole. Taxes at the county, city, state, federal, international level are exploding. School children are being taught to spy on their parents. But by golly, you can go sit around with your friends and just everybody can get a real serious look on their face and, stop my heart, breathe real deep. You know, when they have the kickoffs and when they have special teams and when they have them get up there for a field goal. I mean, why I've been in restaurants when people are watching a football game and you see this electricity in their eyes that you see for nothing else. I wish people had a little comments about the Bill of Rights and Constitution and our heritage that made America so great on the backs of their cars. But instead, no, they've got their favorite sports team. And see, I've read all the government documents and read them here on air where the anthropologists, sociologists, psychologists talk about using sports going back 100 years ago to create arrested development in men, to take your normal tribal energies and to arrest your development and to make you obsess with lotteries, with sports, and with things that don't matter, so the global social engineers can go about life actually controlling society. You see, until just 50, 60 years ago or so, sports were something that children were into, and they were something that the very poorest classes were into. The very poorest people were into gambling, and they were into sports. And in Rome, it was called bread and circus, welfare. They gave you bread. That was the welfare dole for everybody to make you dependent in the lower classes, and circuses, government, free, sponsored sporting events. And that's what the culture was into. So here's the deal. I like football growing up as much as the next person. I like basketball, baseball, all of it. Okay? But at the end of the day, it's being used by social engineers to totally distract society from real things that are happening. And that's why I'm upset about it. And I know that a lot of people aren't conscious of this, and I think you should be conscious of it. You see, you need to see yourself as a winner. You need to have successes in your life that aren't through somebody else. And it is very, very sick how men sit around and get just crazed looks in their eyes and argue with each other and show off to each other who knows the most about golf or who knows the most about this or that. I'm not saying sports aren't a good thing if you're playing them. It's good, it's healthy, it's something that should be part of your life. But when it's everything in your life and the family's breaking down and society is degenerating and all these other things are unfolding, it is very, very sick. And every civilization that is on the verge of giant wars, imperial, Tasmanian devil behavior, expansionist wars, corruption, and collapse, sports, promiscuity, family breaking down, decadence, and people saying, I don't care, devil take the rest, I don't care about anybody but myself. Those are always the hallmarks, the signpost for a society that is in deep trouble. Nazi Germany, in the build-up to Hitler, totally obsessed with sports, with entertainment, with gambling. And people got an attitude of, so what? Same thing has happened in every other culture. I mean, here's an article right here out of CBS News that reminds me of a CNN story 3 days ago about a national survey. Headline, consumers staying single. And it went through the number that in just the last 30 years, they've doubled the amount of single people. And within another 2 decades, 70% of people in this country will be single. Now, that's not a judgment about you being single, so you're bad. There's a lot of reasons for that. Some people are divorced. They choose to be single, whatever the case is. But expanding on that, you cannot deny that in the textbooks we've read here on air, the globalist white papers we've read, the UN documents, the Planned Parenthood documents, going back 50, 60, 70 years, that we've done special reports on, they say, we're going to push not getting married. We're going to push open relationships. We're going to push chemicals in the water to reduce fertility and confuse sexual gender identity. There's so much of this stuff in our water, folks, that the runoff into streams and rivers, you can just type in fish now be either sterile or bisexual, lizards, amphibians, the frogs. It's so bad that the shrimp are committing suicide in the Gulf of Mexico. There it is. Sex turns off many young Japanese men. Study. Guys, people won't believe about the shrimp committing suicide. Type in shrimp commit suicide. Prozac making shrimp commit suicide. It's a U.S. government report. So much Prozac is getting into the water out of the Mississippi because of sewage runoff, and some people are on serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So much of it's running into the Mississippi and other rivers that the shrimp are on the mind-blasting fluoride-based chemical. Now, there's the headline. That's out of Mother Nature Network, but it was originally MSNBC. Shrimp on Prozac commit suicide. Study finds that shrimp swimming in Prozac-contaminated water tend to just basically swim. We'll put it back on screen. I need to read the headline. Thanks. Yeah, because I was going to read the rest of the article, and I hadn't read the rest of the headline, so I won't be able to finish it. Study finds that shrimp swimming in Prozac-contaminated water tend to swim towards the light, making them easier prey. And if you actually read deeper into the study, it's that they're not afraid of predators anymore. It puts humans and mammals, and this is in the studies from the early 80s before they approved it, Eli Lilly's Prozac, and then there were hundreds of other variants of it over the next few decades worldwide that came out, more than 30 variants here in the U.S. But what ends up happening is every time the police pull up at a house and the woman's chopped her children up or driven a car off a bridge with her kids in it, or every time they go to a school and there's a bunch of people shot, in every case that I've ever seen, they're on serotonin reuptake inhibitors because it's in the hallucinogen psychotropic class, and on record, just go research it, puts you into a dream state, into a highly suggestible, hypnotized sleep state. I mean, a few times, I'm not putting these women down, but in college and stuff, dated girls I found out were on serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and I didn't even know, but after a few, dating 4 or 5 of them, I would say, are you taking SSRIs? And they'd be like, yes, I do. And I'm not going to get into how I figured out and could tell they were. It's just that it's like they weren't there. And they would, well, I'm not going to get into it. The point is they were in dream states. Now, I haven't even gotten into Iran. It's escalating towards war. A huge group of government documents and reports out where the globalists are openly talking about staging false flags. These are in public documents, like you and I are idiots and don't read them saying this. So then when they stage the attacks,